One of the mysteries of Britain's ancient Stonehenge.
Stonehenge. Stonehenge.
Stonehenge.
Stonehenge.
Stonehenge.
Stonehenge.
Stonehenge. Stonehenge.
Unknown civilization living right here of Bronze Age people.
English Heritage say the new centre's aimed at giving people a much better experience before they get here to the stones themselves.
Stonehenge. Myth and legend have always surrounded its origins. It's been called both a healing site and a place of human.
For more than 3 centuries, scholars, archaeologists, and curious minds across the world have stood before the ancient stones of Stonehenge and asked the same fundamental question. What exactly is this place, and why was it built? Theories have come and gone. Legends have accumulated. Generations of researchers have dedicated entire careers to piecing together the puzzle of this 5,000-year-old monument on England's Salisbury Plain. Most walked away with more questions than answers. But now, a series of extraordinary discoveries driven by cutting-edge ground-penetrating radar technology has fundamentally transformed everything we believed we understood about this prehistoric site. The mystery of Stonehenge has not simply deepened. In critical and stunning ways, it has finally begun to be solved. For most of its investigative history, Stonehenge was studied the hard way, through excavation, surface observation, and educated guesswork. Researchers could see only what sat above the ground, and the chalk bedrock beneath the site remained stubbornly sealed, giving nothing away. That changed with the arrival of the Stonehenge Hidden Landscapes Project, a multi-year scientific initiative led by Professor Vincent Gaffney of the University of Bradford in partnership with the Ludwig Boltzmann Institute for Archaeological Prospection and Virtual Archaeology in Vienna. The project deployed ground-penetrating radar, high-resolution magnetometers, and other state-of-the-art remote sensing equipment across the landscape surrounding the monument, mapping the area to a depth of roughly 10 feet without disturbing a single stone or blade of grass. The technology works by sending electromagnetic pulses deep into the earth. When those pulses encounter objects, density shifts, or structural changes in the subsurface soil and rock, they bounce back to the surface, producing detailed underground images of whatever lies hidden below. It is, in essence, an X-ray machine for the ancient ground. What those pulses returned changed everything. The radar scans did not find the routine post holes and burial pits researchers had anticipated. Instead, they uncovered evidence of an underground world of staggering complexity that no one had known existed. As Gaffney's team analyzed the data emerging from their monitors, it became immediately clear that Stonehenge was never simply a circle of standing stones in an open field. It was the visible centerpiece of something far larger, far more elaborate, and far more sophisticated than 3 centuries of investigation had ever revealed. Perhaps the single most dramatic find produced by the radar surveys came not directly beneath Stonehenge itself, but 2 miles northeast of it, at the site of Dewington Walls, one of Britain's largest henge monuments, believed by many archaeologists to have been a settlement for the builders of Stonehenge itself. What the geophysical surveys uncovered there in 2020 stunned the entire archaeological world. A massive ring of prehistoric shafts, at least 20 in total, each measuring approximately 30 feet wide and 15 feet deep with nearly vertical sides, have been sitting completely undetected beneath the surface, arranged in a circle stretching more than a mile in diameter, centered precisely on Dewington Walls. The structures were carbon dated to approximately 2500 BC, placing them at precisely the same period as Stonehenge's major construction phase. Professor Gaffney described the discovery as an unprecedented find of major significance within the UK, noting that key researchers who had spent careers studying Stonehenge and its landscape were taken aback by the sheer scale of what had been missed. The shafts are now recognized as the largest prehistoric structure ever found in Britain. Researchers believe the ring marked a sacred boundary around Dewington Walls, with the pits and an associated internal post line likely functioning to guide people toward the religious sites of the center, while simultaneously warning others not to cross into the protected territory. But beyond their possible ceremonial function, the ring raises a far more unsettling question. The geometrical precision required to arrange that many large structures in a circle spanning more than a mile, using only Stone Age tools, implies a level of mathematical planning and coordinated organization that researchers had never previously credited to Neolithic communities. The planning required to create a structure of this scale suggests that a sophisticated counting and measurement system was already in place nearly 5,000 years ago. These were not primitive people working by instinct. They were engineers. The Dington shaft ring was not the only revelation hiding beneath the surface. As the Hidden Landscapes Project expanded its radar surveys across the wider Stonehenge region, the data continued to deliver shock after shock. When researchers published the 4-year project results, they announced the discovery of 17 previously unknown ritual monuments dating to the period when Stonehenge was taking its now iconic form. The monument that millions of tourists visit each year was not a solitary, isolated structure standing alone on a windswept plain. It was the centerpiece of a vast, carefully designed ceremonial complex that extended for miles in every direction. Among the newly discovered features were the remains of a massive buried structure described as a house of the dead, hundreds of burial mounds mapped in unprecedented detail, and evidence of a nearby superhenge at Dington Walls that was once flanked by as many as 60 gigantic stone or timber columns stretching along a 1,082-foot-long curved enclosure. There was also evidence of processional pathways, ancient routes carved into the landscape specifically to funnel movement toward the central monument, like a vast ceremonial highway leading worshippers, pilgrims, or perhaps the dead toward the heart of the sacred site. What became clear from this accumulated picture is that the visible stones of Stonehenge represent only a small fraction of what the builders actually constructed. The structure above ground was the tip of an archaeological iceberg. For 3 centuries, researchers have been studying the tip and calling it the whole. Beneath and around those famous megaliths lay an entire designed landscape of extraordinary, deliberate complexity, one that was now finally giving up its secrets to the electromagnetic pulses of 21st century technology. While the radar surveys were rewriting the map of Stonehenge's hidden landscape, a completely separate line of research was revealing something equally astonishing about the monument itself, something that explained the strange sensations visitors had reported for generations without being able to account for them. For decades, people who entered the stone's circle described feeling something unusual, a low vibration in the chest, an inexplicable sense of awe or unease, a feeling that the air itself was different inside the ring compared to just outside it. Most researchers dismissed these reports as imagination, the power of suggestion, or the wishful thinking of tourists hoping for a mystical experience. Then acoustical engineer Trevor Cox at the University of Salford set out to measure what was actually happening inside those stones. In 2020, Cox and his team constructed a precisely scaled physical model of Stonehenge, a 1/12 scale replica they called Mini-Henge, built using laser scans of the actual site and detailed archaeological records, and tested it inside a specially designed semi-anechoic chamber that eliminated all external noise interference. What the measurements showed was remarkable. Despite the many gaps between the stones and the incomplete modern ruin, the reverberation time inside the model averaged approximately 0.6 seconds for mid-frequency sounds. Speech was amplified by around 4 decibels. Voices became fuller, richer, and more commanding. Musical instruments resonated with amplified depth that wrapped around listeners from multiple directions simultaneously. And, crucially, sound that originated inside the circle did not project outward to people standing just beyond the ring of stones. The acoustic effect was entirely contained within the circle. For the people of Neolithic Britain, this would have been a completely unprecedented sensory experience. Ordinary Neolithic homes, built of wood with thatched roofing, absorbed sound efficiently. Open landscapes dispersed it rapidly. Dense ancient forests swallowed it entirely. There were no churches, no cathedrals, no concert halls no enclosed stone spaces of any kind where reverberating sound could envelop a person the way it did inside Stonehenge. As Cox himself put it, it must have seemed magical. To walk inside that circle and suddenly hear voices gaining authority, drums taking on depth, chanting wrapping around the listener from every direction. This was a sensory transformation with no parallel in the ancient world. Whether intentionally designed or discovered after the stones were raised, those acoustic properties would certainly have been exploited once understood. The research also suggested that the specific arrangement of inner and outer stones was effective at eliminating disruptive sharp echoes, while preserving the beneficial reverberant quality, a level of acoustic refinement that, even if unintentional, would have produced a consistently powerful effect on everyone who entered. While the radar surveys were uncovering the buried landscape and the acoustic studies were measuring what Stonehenge did to sound, a completely independent scientific breakthrough was arriving from the field of geology, and it may have produced the most surprising revelation of all. For over a century, scientists had believed they knew where all of Stonehenge's major stones originated. The large sarsen uprights came from the Marlborough Downs about 25 kilometers to the north. The bluestones came from the Preseli Hills in Wales. And the altar stone, the large 6-ton sandstone slab lying flat at the very heart of the circle, was assumed to have come from Wales as well. In August 2024, a research team led by PhD student Anthony Clark at Curtin University in Australia published findings in the journal Nature that overturned that assumption entirely. Clark and his colleagues used high-precision mass spectrometry at the John Elater Center to analyze tiny mineral grains within fragments of the altar stone with extraordinary accuracy, measuring the age and chemical composition of individual crystals grain by grain. The specific combination of mineral ages they found, some grains between 1 and 2 billion years old, others clustering around 450 million years, created a chemical fingerprint so distinctive that it matched only one geological formation anywhere in the known world, the Arcadian Basin in northeastern Scotland, more than 700 kilometers from Stonehenge. The researchers were stunned. Co-author Dr. Robert Ixer of University College London, who had spent decades studying Stonehenge's geology and had written definitive papers on the origins of its stones, described the result as genuinely shocking. The team ran additional verification before accepting the conclusion. Every check came back identical. The altar stone, the central sacred slab at the heart of one of the world's most studied monuments, had been transported from Scotland approximately 5,000 years ago. Moving a 6-ton sandstone block across 700 kilometers of ancient Britain would have posed an almost incomprehensible logistical challenge. Dense primeval forests, treacherous marshlands, and rivers without bridges made overland transport extraordinarily difficult. Glacial transport in the right direction was ruled out by the geological evidence. That left marine transport as the most feasible explanation, carefully loading the stone onto specially constructed vessels and guiding it along hundreds of kilometers of open and rocky coastline, navigating using sophisticated knowledge of tides, currents, and the night sky. A more recent 2026 study by Clark's team built further on these findings, using both mineral fingerprinting and glacier modeling to narrow the altar stone's likely point of origin to either the Caithness area or the Inverness Black Isle region of northeastern Scotland. It also suggested that a glacier may have helped carry the stone partway during the Ice Age toward a now-submerged landmass called Dogger Bank, an area of the North Sea floor that was dry land for thousands of years after the glaciers retreated. If so, prehistoric people may have found the stone there, preserved it for millennia, and eventually transported it onward to Salisbury Plain. Not one journey,